Good afternoon, or I should say good morning, because we haven't even had lunch yet. It's exciting to be here. Democracy is in a very difficult situation. I think we all know that. And I actually think it's in grave danger. And it's gotten worse during the last couple of months. And now also some leaders are starting to be more outspoken about it, such as Frank-Walter Steinmeier in Germany, Macron, of course, very recently, and The Economist has even launched a platform to promote liberal ideas and concepts. Now, I come from a very liberal background. I grew up in a very liberal family with the belief and the conviction that freedom is the most precious thing that we have, and that we can never take it for granted, but that we need to keep fighting for it, otherwise it slips away. So, we must do something. I'm convinced of that. And I'm convinced that we need to do it now, because if we don't, then the path we choose right now might very well determine the path of society for several decades to come. So I'm here to tell you that I'm convinced that we must do something now, but I'm also here to tell you that actually we can do something. But before I get to that, I need to talk a little bit about the root causes of the situation that we are in. There's, of course, lots of things that contribute to the situation that we have at the moment. But I think one of the most important things that we have, or the most important reason for that, is actually that governments simply can't solve the problems anymore that we have. And there are a lot of people that simply feel left behind. I mean, you hear a lot about stock market rising and about how rich the rich are and how richer they get by the minute and about growth. But there are a lot of people out there who simply don't feel that they're participating there. And they're looking for something to hold on to. They're looking for somebody who promises change. And since the mainstream governments and our mainstream parties cannot do that anymore, they look elsewhere. And of course, populists and extremists provide that. Their messages are simple and they give a stronghold, so to speak. It's something that people can easily understand and that they can hold on to. So they will change at any cost, I believe. But why actually can't our governments solve the problems anymore that we have? It's simple, because the world has changed dramatically. You all know that. In what way? And our governments and the way our governments work have not. Basically, you could say that our governments are still operating analog in a digital world. They actually need an update. The most important characteristic, in my opinion, of this change is complexity. More and more things are interconnected due to technology and due to digitalization. And more things come together that used to be separate. And when that happens, everything changes. When you put things together, they start having entirely different characteristics from the elements that they have. And you cannot tell what the entire system will be like from the elements. I'd like to give you an example. Take water. It's not a complex molecule, but it's a good example to show what I mean. Water consists of hydrogen and oxygen. Now you put them together, you get water. Water is wet. Water behaves in a certain way. You can wash with water, you can drink it, you can swim in it. But take hydrogen and take oxygen, and you don't find that. You don't find these characteristics. They're not wet. They don't move like water. You can't drink it, you can't swim it, you can't do nothing with them, or other things, of course. But from just looking at the different elements, you cannot tell what the entire system will be like. And it's the same with society now. Now that everything is interconnected, and now that our systems are complex, they change entirely. They change the way they behave. They are non-linear. They're not knowable, even in principle. Their properties change. Their nature really changes and the laws they follow also change. But now what do people do when they're faced with the complexity that we have? Everybody does it. And you hear it all the time. We have to reduce complexity, right? Make it simple, keep it simple, is what we hear all the time. But that's exactly wrong. We need to learn to embrace complexity, to use it and to harness it for the good of society. For the good of society, because complexity is, well, give me a second. Yeah, exactly. Because, there it is again. Because higher abilities generally only come from higher complexity. That's what a German biologist once said. And Stephen Hawking, I'm not sure if you heard that, he once said that the next century, by which he meant this century now, will be the century of complexity. You can actually look at evolution as a path towards ever greater complexity out there. I want to give you another example. Our brain is unbelievably complex. I once actually heard that the kind of connections that our brain cells can make is greater than the number of atoms in the universe. So it's an unbelievable complexity. But when you came here, you didn't deposit half of your brain at the wardrobe and in the locker, right? You didn't say, well, I'm just going to sit here and listen. I don't need all this complexity here. I can just get rid of half. No, you need your brain. And you need the complexity your brain can provide. Because it's this complexity that makes you who you are. That lets you have emotions, that lets you know that you are you, that lets you feel anger and all of that. So complexity is actually necessary. And we need to learn how to use it. And we can learn that from the two complexity sciences of system science and of cybernetics. Now, for those of you who might not know them all that well, system science is the science of wholes, of looking at things and systems in their interconnections. And the interconnections are actually, in complex systems, much, much more relevant than the individual elements. So system science looks at systems and questions within their context, within their entire environment. Cybernetics is what I want to call the science that makes everything work. It's the science of the steering of and in complex systems. Of course, you hear a lot about cyber this, cyber that, and you all know what the connotations are and what you connect to it. That's only half the truth. Of course, there is some cybernetics in there because technology has always embraced cybernetics, whereas the social sciences have not. But the word cybernetics actually comes from Kybernetes, Greek, which means steersman. So the person at the helm of a boat. And that person doesn't really care why the current is flowing, where it's flowing. They don't care why the wind is blowing. They just need to use these things to get where they want to get. And so these sciences have, because they've been around for very long, they actually have the same roots as digitalization after the Second World War with Turing, of course, and self-guiding missiles. These sciences provide us with methods and tools that are ready to use in these situations, but very few people know about it. I'd love to, there's several and there's lots, and I'd love to tell you more about them, but due to time reasons, I can't really do that. So I'd like to just give you one example so you see what such methods can actually do. Some time ago, we did an event with 150 representatives from youth organizations from all across Europe, and beyond that, actually. And we used such a cybernetic method that can interlink all these people communication-wise in a cybernetically optimal way. It's entirely free of hierarchy, so every person can contribute the same to the topics they discuss, in this case, the Constitution, what should it be like, what should be in it, what should not be in it. And they also set their agenda. So there's nothing predetermined before they come here. They only know that's about the Constitution. But this method can provide a setting in which all the knowledge is shared between these people, in which they create a common understanding for their perspectives and learn why another person thinks how they think, and why maybe they need to change their mind when they think about this other person. And after 4 days, we did not only have a constitution, we also had consensus among people for this constitution. And we had excitement for going forward with this constitution. So, this is just a small example of what these methods can do. And there will be lots more to tell. Now, I'm here to invite you to do something about that, to stand up and voice your opinions for democracy and for freedom and liberalism. There are tools that we have, there are methods that we have, and that can readily be available, but it requires a new kind of thinking, a new kind of looking at the world. And that must also be part, in my opinion, of education. Just like we teach people to write and to read, we must teach them to look at systems in their entirety, and must teach them how complex systems behave and what they can do about it. So thank you very much for your attention. I hope I could give you a glimpse into cybernetics and system science and what they can do. And I'm very glad to be part of this community, and let's make it all together. Thank you so much.
That's good. Thank you.